hasn't always been easy, to be honest. That expanded state of consciousness, I pretty much stayed in for about 4 days, 5 days afterwards. Did a lot of laughing. And so integrating it has been around really accepting and knowing that it's there, and then also accepting that I stepped out of that experience and started to identify with the day-to-day person. It was a very enlightened state. And I had some anger around that as well. It's like I could have stayed there forever. Not necessarily out of my body, but also then just in the awareness that I had when I came out. The following day I was up and well and eating in a restaurant. Well, I was up. I wasn't necessarily well. My physical body was not well, but I begged to get out of the treatment room, and I begged to get out of the room that I was in, just staring up at the ceiling. I just really wanted to go out and see the world. And so what followed, the experience with the grass, then became even more profound in terms of the extent of awareness. I then became aware of a grain of sand, and then the same experience, the uniqueness of the tone, the name, the tone. I believe that scientists now also know that when dolphins call their young, the mother uses a unique tone or click for each baby dolphin. And so, although we say names like Shavasti or Fred or Susan, that a name can just be a sound. It doesn't have to be, as that is, it's just, we identify that as being human language. And so names don't have to be in human language. And so for me, each grain of sand, that's how I would translate it, and each blade of grass had a name. That wasn't as spectacular as one might think it to be. What was spectacular about that is knowing that this vast awareness was aware of each grain of sand on the planet. That was what was vast in terms of this experience, and vast in terms of the implications of that. And so it's what came next that became very life-changing. And I had tasted it before, I had experienced it in meditations, I had experienced it in my workshops, I have experienced grace and the hand of God many, many times over the years through different experiences that I've had, whether it be doing meditation intensives in a monastery somewhere, or in my healing practice working with a client or giving workshops. So the hand of grace has been there very, very often. But this completely and this fully was really a very new level for me and life-changing. So then I saw the earth in its entirety. And I saw each mother who loved her children, who adored her children, who encouraged her children, and each mother who hated her children, who abhorred her children, who abused her children, who hit her children, who abandoned her children, who deserted her children. And I saw each father who respected his children, loved his children, cared for his children, protected his children, encouraged them to be all that they could be and acknowledge their essence. And every father who abandoned his children, abused his children, beat his children, disrespected his children, saw them all in one view. And then I experienced all of the war, all of the atrocities, all of the ugliness, all of the pollution, all of the nightmares of humanity, and then all of the beauty, the music, the dance, the love, the expressions of love, the communications between people, our relationships with nature. I saw all of the animals, all of the trees. I saw the polluted land and the pristine land, all of it together in one complete circle. I would call that a circle, as one complete picture. And what I experienced in those moments of being merged with this vast awareness, was that everything, when I talk about it, I go back to that place, and then I touch human emotion, of course. It's still very moving to me. And part of that being moved is also realizing that this vast experience is something that I'm not in anymore. And so there's a homesickness, there's a longing to be in that place, to be there permanently. And when I say in that place, I don't mean out of my body and dead and not coming back, because I had the experience of still being in my body in the days afterwards and being in that space. It was more filtered when I got back into the physical body, but certainly for 2, 3, 4 days afterwards, it was in that space, not quite to the extent of not being in my physical body. And so what I experienced out of all of that, which was what I would call the deepest gasp ever, to be profoundly astounded by a truth that rocked me to my core, of even realizing and knowing fully and experiencing fully that even the word love is impotent compared to what I experienced there. It's a meaningless word. The words that I can come up with that can approximate what I experienced was that every blade of grass, every hair on every human head, every mother, whether she loved or hated her children, every father, whether he loved or abused his children, or abandoned them or stayed, every grain of sand was held as exquisite and precious. Precious. Nothing undervalued. So a priest is not more valued than a prostitute. A prince is not more valued than a pauper. And that has stayed with me. To know that even all of our images of love and what cosmic love is, exquisitely precious. And if I could find other words that would expand upon this word love that we have, or even exquisite and precious, then I would use them. Because they don't even come close. They don't even come close. Love seems to be a very flimsy word to describe what was there. Mostly it's because we have so many images around what love is. Romantic love, or being kind or pleasant or nice or polite to someone. But even when we describe the love of God, then love becomes impotent. And also too, the love of God has been so distorted. Been distorted by religions, by spiritual teachers, by all of us. We have these notions. And so in that experience of everything being held as exquisite and precious, it was the precious that I really took home. It's like everything. everything and everyone, every movement, every moment being held as precious, as being important. And there's a paradox in that too. On the one hand, the earth and all of her peoples, in terms of the grand scheme of this huge, vast universe that we're in, is like a speck of dust, wouldn't be missed, on the one hand. And on the other hand, out of this great, vast universe that we live in, even a grain of sand is precious. And that, there are no words for that. There are no words for that. But here I am trying to find them, to communicate to you and to many others what that experience was like. Then I looked down at myself. I suddenly became aware of the hospital room again, and I looked down at myself, and I looked at my life, and I looked at many of the images that I had of what it is to be good. And I still have some, and I question them now. And I suddenly found myself back in my body with the realization that there was nothing, absolutely nothing I could ever do, be, say, or become in order to get more of what it was that I experienced. Meaning, there's nothing I could do to earn God's love. And then what I realized is that that there is not there. That there's right here. So it's only an internal barrier between me and that vast awareness. And so when I came back, what happened, and it went on for definitely one day, and I think 1.5 or 2 days, is that I laughed, and I laughed, and I laughed, and I laughed. And what I was laughing at was the ridiculousness of the images and the stories and the efforting and the trying and the agony and the pain to try and be good, or to achieve something, or to have more of God, or to be more spiritual, or to work through all my karma so then finally I can be good. And I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was so funny that I couldn't stop laughing. It's a cosmic joke. Suddenly the veils of the illusion had been lifted, and I was able to see everything exactly as it was. And I found it hilarious. And then the following day, I went off and ate this meal in a public place. And I began to giggle and to laugh to myself as people walked by. Because I was suddenly piercing the veils of illusion and seeing God in 1,000 different disguises. And some of those disguises were very good. I looked at one man who looked mean and grumpy and just quite unpleasant. And I laughed to myself because I went, "You nearly got me there, God. I had no idea that you were inside there. I was fooled by the disguise. There you are, right there. And there's me looking at you." And that continued for days afterwards. And it was the most precious gift I could ever have received.